What's up, everybody? Welcome back to MOT Mondays or Moment of Transparency Mondays, whatever you want to call it. I am your host, Joshua Winfrey, and again, welcome. Again, I'm really excited to be here. I'm excited to host this. I'm just excited to share my life, share my journey, share my walk with God, share my gifts, my talents. Just excited to be here. If you're not already subscribed here, make sure you guys also subscribe to the actual podcast. It's laid on all platforms: Google Play, Spotify, Apple Podcasts, you name it, all of the platforms. I'm subscribed there, subscribe here on YouTube. Follow all my socials at Joshua Winfrey. One on Instagram, Joshua Winfrey. On TikTok, I do also have another TikTok that I'm starting. I guess I'll go ahead and promote that as well. It's Marketing by Josh. I'm going to literally put most of my business stuff on that platform. So you're going to want to get tapped into that if you're looking to any kind of social media digital marketing services. If you're looking to platform yourself on social media, I'm your guy. If you need help with that, I've been doing it for about 11 years, and so now I'm coming to offer it to the public. I'm promoting what God has given me. So, not to belabor the point, not to get sidetracked with what today and what this podcast is about. Um, this week, just to kind of run y'all through real quick, just kind of how Moment of Transparency works. This is just usually a spot where I come and I'm just transparent. But I also do want to allow God to speak. Something that I've learned in my journey with God, walking with God, hearing the voice of God, is just that in your walk with God, you're going to get to a place where it's no longer just about what you want to say. It's no longer about what you dealt with and your feelings and your emotions and you venting. It becomes a thing where it's like your feelings, your emotions, your wants, your desires, like no longer are living. And it's just God that speaks to you. And so there's moments where I come and make a video and I want to talk. I want to share what I want to share. I want to give what I want to give. And that may not be on God's heart. And so when I make videos and things of that sort, I try to be like, Lord, what do you want to talk about? What's on your heart? Because this is a partnership. And I guess this goes into what I want to talk about. This is a partnership. And so as you begin to develop in your relationship with God, as you begin to get closer to Him, as you begin to just the intimacy between you and God grows more and more. This is a good segue, Lord. Um, it's gonna no longer be about what you want, and it's a beautiful thing. It's a beautiful thing to where it's like it's almost like what you desire, what you want, no longer lives. And it's not that it's no longer it no longer lives. It's just you have fully given your stuff over to God, your desires, your wants. For those of y'all who don't know, I am a language learning enthusiast. I was talking to God today about Spanish, and He was just telling me I need to kind of put it to the side and allow Him to give it back to me. And He was just talking about how He wants to just blow my mind with it, and that I don't need to just go and try to do things on my own. And God gave me a whole analogy with this too. And the analogy is pretty much that, like, just think about it. Like, you have a wife, for men, right? You have a wife and she has all these ideas and all these things she wants to do, but she wants to go run out and do it on her own. Like, how that's gonna make you feel. And it took me for a turn a bit, because I was like, dang, like that's how you feel. Like, that's how you feel when we really get the inside scoop on like how we make God feel. It's like, oh, all right, well, let me fix myself. Let me ingrain God into just everything that I do. I talk about this in the last podcast about trust in the Lord, lean out on your own understanding, in all your ways acknowledge Him, and He'll direct your path. Like, this is a part of that, acknowledging God in all of your ways. Like, this is that part of, like, I want to do this, but God, what is on your heart? So for me, it's like I have some things I want to talk about, but I don't know. I feel like there's something God wants to talk about, and I'm gonna get out of His way. And right now, I don't know what the title of this video is gonna be. I'm just literally, I do have this though. This is just the funny thing about this. I picked this notepad up. I kind of dabble and write in it a bit. Oh, y'all can see it. And so I kind of write in it a bit about, most of my business stuff is in here, but sometimes I write some stuff that God gives me. It's just a quick little notepad I can just kind of take wherever I go. And I wrote some stuff about hearing the voice of God here. And this kind of is actually also like a segue or a good like second podcast on top of what we talked about last week, primarily because last week we talked a bit about trusting in the Lord with all of your heart. And I remember at the end of the podcast, I was talking about how my perspective on my relationship with God is a little different than the average man, because this is what I want to talk about, but I think I'm just going to take it one step at a time. I was talking about my relationship with God, and I was talking about how homosexuality has really given me a different perspective on God, because God and I's relationship actually isn't like father and son. There was a season of my life where that's what it felt like, and that's what it was. But now, as my relationship has developed, as I am intimate with God on a different level, the level of intimacy that I have with God, it's like it's low key kind of romantic, but it's not romantic, if that makes sense. Like, and I remember talking to my mom a little bit about this, about how my perspective on my relationship with God is different than it's different. It's just really different. And it's different primarily because I think I said this in the last podcast, but like my whole life I've been trying to apply all this pressure to any and everybody. And for the most part, it's been men, especially in the homosexual lifestyle. And so in me coming to God, I realized that this desire to want to pour myself out and give my all to somebody was only meant to go to God. And I think for some people, men who've never dealt with homosexuality, you may have dealt with this when it comes to women. You apply yourself to women, but that void or that part of your life that you're supposed to apply that pressure to, or that tenacity, whatever you want to call it, it's supposed to be applied to God. You know what I'm saying? And so basically, something that God was revealing to me when I was talking to my mom is just that, like, the world has perverted what intimacy is supposed to look like between men. If you look at the Bible, Jesus was intimate with his disciples. Like, he kissed Judas. Like, he was, like, his disciples knew that he loved him, and it was a different kind of intimacy. If you think about Jonathan and David, they had a different kind of intimacy, and these are two men, and you can feel it. I don't know if y'all read the Bible like this. Like, if you read the Bible, like, I remember reading the story about David and Jonathan, and even just about how Jesus loved on his disciples. Like, there's a different kind of love that men can tap into with God that is not talked about. And I remember like a year or two ago, maybe 2 or 3 years ago, I forget, when I was like watching anime. I had to put anime down, but I used to be a big anime fanatic. And God had revealed this to me through a show. I was watching Naruto, actually, and it was I was looking at the relationship between Pervy Sage and Naruto, and I was looking at that. I was looking at the relationship between Sasuke and Naruto as well. And something God had revealed to me is that there is a level of intimacy that men can encounter with God, or that men can encounter with men, that is deeper than just friendship. That's not perverted, and it's not talked about. Like, it's not talked about at all. It's not talked about primarily because society has deemed intimacy between men as gay. They've deemed uh and when I say intimacy, because I hope y'all, this is one of those things where you have to literally listen with spiritual ears and allow God to show you what he's portraying in this moment. There's a level of intimacy between a father and a son, and then a son. It's not, and that's one dynamic, right? But there's another dimension of a relationship between two men that's intimate. It's nothing perverted. It's nothing on the lines of, you gotta, I'm not gonna even get into that. But it's an intimacy. And so when I talk about my relationship with God, and something that it just hit me like a couple of weeks ago, or a week or so ago, when I created the last podcast, that it's just like, dang, like, I feel like there are some men, and if there's some men out there who have encountered this, like, definitely let me know in the comments or whatever the case is. But there are some men that have not encountered this level of love with God because they deem that the level of level of intimacy is gay. And I think this is the lie of the enemy, to try to stop men from being intimate with God like this. And it's not something that society has seen. I was talking to my mom about this today too, like, about how I'm just so excited to be a father because I want to love on my sons. Like, I didn't grow up with that kind of love. My dad is really great. Like, my dad is a really good guy, but my dad isn't, like, how do I say this? My dad would say he loved me. I never felt it. We say it like that. My dad would say that he loved me, but I never felt it. The men in my life, they may honestly any. I don't remember hearing any other men say that they loved me growing up. It's kind of crazy. My grandfather, no, I never heard it from him. My uncles, definitely not. On my dad's side, not them either. No, I don't think I've ever heard a man say that they loved me as an individual, except for my father, and I think maybe some men at my church, possibly, but I don't remember. It's been so long. But like, there's a level of love that is between men that is authentic, that it's real, it's biblical, and it's something that God wants to be portrayed in fatherhood and brotherhood in a lot of different areas. And it's not something that we talk about a lot. And I talk about this a lot, but like on social media, I see all these groups and all this stuff for women empowerment this and grants for women for this and all this stuff. And it's great. Like y'all do y'all thing, but I'm like, dang, where's the stuff for the men? Because I was lacking growing up. I was a big lacking growing up in regards to feeling loved by men. And because I didn't feel that love from men, I ran to women, which is where homosexuality sprouted out from because I began to pick up mannerisms from them. And it wasn't that I wasn't attracted to women. It was just that because people deemed my obsession with women, because I was very fascinated with women, and that my mannerisms and picking up women like tricks because I was just a lot more comfortable with women. People deemed that as gay. I grew up in a very conservative home, so I didn't even know what gay was. And I remember hearing somebody call me gay for the first time in like fifth grade. I didn't know what that word was. I remember looking up at the dictionary in elementary school and hearing and seeing that the word gay meant happy. And so I was like, yeah, I'm gay. And so that being said, like I remember looking that word up and then the rabbit hole began there. Like the rabbit hole just began there because but it all started from feeling a lack of love from men. And I'm not even blaming my father like my dad did and is doing just what he knows. My dad is a really good guy. Like we have a really good relationship now. But just like I don't know, this is something that's on my heart. Like this is something that is sitting with me. Like it's something that I want to have a hand in changing. It's something that I want to change with my sons. Like I want to love on my sons. I want to kiss on my sons. Like I want to play ball with them. I want to take them shopping and show them like, different styles and let them experiment with that. I want to like I have a really huge desire to be a father. And it's because of how I've encountered God. And I think every so often God disciplines me and I kind of shrivel up, but I shrivel up because of how harsh discipline was for me growing up. And it's difficult for me to look at discipline from a good perspective. Like it's difficult for me to look at God's discipline as far as him disciplining us. It's difficult for me to look at it as positive, but it is. It's positive. Think about your child. Your child is in the kitchen, they go to a hot stove and they keep trying to touch something. Like they can either learn from their mistakes or their father can, hit their hand and really get in their face about it. But little do the child know that on the other side of their father not doing that, they could burn their hand and inflict permanent damage. And so when you think about it like that, it's like, no, I actually want my dad I want to hear my dad's perspective. I want to hear God's perspective. I want them to chastise me in a sense. I want them to, discipline me because God's discipline is redirection. And something that kind of was sitting in my spirit a bit, and I'm going to let God kind of unfold it because I don't even know what I'm about to say. Discipline is twofold. Discipline is a part of discipline where, and this is something that was kind of crazy to me. I was like, yo, this is kind of crazy. Discipline has two meanings. Discipline as you're being disciplined in something, like you are being consistent, like you have discipline, you have self-control, like you are progressively moving towards a goal. And then you have discipline where someone is disciplining you and they're correcting you. And I don't know, I feel like with those two words, I don't know why I decided to talk about that, but I feel like with those two words, it's very important that we apply both of those to our lives, that we allow God to discipline us, and that we are disciplined in our relationship with God and whatever we decide to pursue in our lives. It's just very important. Okay. And I just throw that out there. I don't know why I brought that up. But to get back on point, yeah, like I want to I want to have a hand in disciplining my kids and doing it the right way. Something that God had revealed to me too, even about just, discipline in the Black household. It's just that like God disciplines us. Like in a relationship with God, God is constantly disciplining you, and you feel that. Like, and you feel that discipline for real. But God is not physically abusing you. So how does God's point get across to you? And how does God, like, you know, how does God get his point across to you and you do what he asks you to do? You get what I'm saying? Like, how does he do that without physically abusing you? And the reason I'm talking about this is because God had revealed to me through this. It's just like, you don't have to spank your kids in order for them to get the point. You don't have to. You learn your children. Like, God knows me. God knows that I'm one of those kind of people where like I really don't want to disappoint him. So it's like whenever he like is like disciplining me, I'm like quick to, like, I say this all the time, but I'm a bit of an extremist. So if God disciplines me and I'm going right, he could tell me to just say, he could say pivot left, I'm gonna go all the way left. But that's really out of fear. Excuse me. But that being said, like, like I've looked at discipline the wrong way. And I think as I mature my walk with God, I actually welcome discipline. I actually welcome suffering that comes with living on this earth, primarily because I know that suffering brings a great reward in heaven. I know that discipline actually is the pruning in me. And I said this on TikTok too, and I gave this analogy that God gave me on my walk like a day or two ago. And it's pretty much that, like, if you go like to a new subdivision where they're building homes and they put these like little trees, like these short little trees, so they're real skinny, in the lawns and stuff, literally like the trees sprout up first, but they get to a certain height and they can't grow any higher because the base of that tree, the trunk of that tree, can't hold any more weight, or the tree will begin to lean, right? And it won't keep going up and producing fruit per se. And so basically what God was showing me is that in your walk with God, like, number one, God is consistently pruning you, right? What God was revealing to me is that, like, he's consistently pruning you. He's consistently pruning the branches and stuff on your tree so that, like, you can actually produce much fruit, because if there's a lot of weight up top, right? If there's a lot of weight up top and the base isn't solidified and it doesn't expand, then the base and the roots can't carry the weight of what's on top of it. You all get what I'm saying? So the season that I feel like I'm in, and even some of us, I believe that most of us are in, I think we're in a season where God is like, he's kind of halted our growth a bit. Not that we're not going to continue to grow, but he's halted our upward growth. And now he is expanding our downward growth, and he's expanding our base. He's expanding our trunks so that we can carry more weight, so that we can grow more. Y'all get what I'm saying? So God is now building us right now in this season. Just, he's building us so that we can carry more. He wants to give you the finances you're asking for. He wants to give you the blessing. He wants to give you a bigger platform. He wants to make your name a household name, right? But in order for him to do that, you got to be, even more secure in the presence of God. You got to be even more secure. The roots got to go even deeper in the ground, and your trunk has got to enlarge. The trunk has got to get bigger. That being said, it's just time for us to expand. It's time for God to expand us. It's time for our roots to grow deeper. It's time for our trunks to get bigger. And it's time that our bosoms, our spirits, our gut, right, gets renewed and be refilled with the presence of God, so that we can do and be all that God has called us to be. And it's just that simple. And so I don't know. I don't know if that's gonna be it for this podcast. I think that might be it. um, but one thing I can say is just that, like, be encouraged that even where you feel like God is not moving, even when you feel like you are alone, even when you feel like you are just isolated again, you feel me? Because this is like my second time being isolated like this. God is trying to bring you closer to him even more. Whenever you're in a season where you're just by yourself a lot, that is the opportunity for God to really ignite a fire in you and to bring you closer to him. So one thing my mom was talking about yesterday that I'm holding dear to is that it's lonely at the top. The more that you ask from God, the higher that you want to go, the less people you can have around you. The more people fall off, because most people can't go where you're going. The top really is lonely. Think about like the 1% in America, the richest people in America. The 1% is like, I don't know, maybe like 10, 15, 20 people out of like what 300 million people in the US. That's a small percentage and amount to how many people that live in America. So the higher you go, the less people you can be around. This is not just in the natural, this is a spiritual component. The deeper you go in God's presence, the less you can be around people. This is something like, okay, this is something that God was revealing to me even in my private time and reading Ezekiel. I think I said this on TikTok, but I've been reading Ezekiel 40 through like 45, 46. And it was just talking about how there's like these, like, I think 500 or five, it's something like that, 50 or 500 cubits or whatever, surrounding the temple to separate the holy from the common. The closer and closer and closer you get to God, the less you can be reachable by people. It just is what it is. It's not that you're better than people, greater than people. It's nothing like that. God is not a respecter of persons. It's one of those things where there's people literally have a lot of baggage, and that stuff cannot come into the holies of holies. And so if God has called you to come to the holies of holies, you have to come before Him without all that baggage. And because you're constantly in a place of sacrifice, you sacrifice literally all that you have in order to be in God's presence. Because of that level of sacrifice, literally people's just their contact with you is going to consecrate them. This is something I was reading in Ezekiel 46 today, that the contact that people would have with you and the sacrifice that you would make would consecrate them, which is why you're separated, which is why you're set apart, which is why you can't be around a lot of people, because the level of intimacy that you have with God, it's contagious. People are going to feel it. People are going to sense it on your content, and they're going to be drawn to it. People are going to want to be friends with you because of the oil that you have, but it's because of the sacrifices that you've made in the secret place. So you have to begin to look at it like, okay, I can't be friends with everybody. If people don't live the kind of life that I live, I cannot come in agreement with them. I cannot come in covenant with them. I can love you from a distance. I can minister to you. I can serve you. You know, the Levitical priests in the temple literally were servants of the people. They were the one who brought the sacrifices of the people before God so that their sins were taken care of. This was before Jesus, right? This is what the prophetic people, this is what people who sacrifice like this is what you're called to. The people that, we call the black sheep of the family. And literally, like, my family unit was like the black sheep, but I'm like the black sheep of the black sheep. These kind of people, this is what you're called to. You're called to the holies of holies. You're called to the inner court. And so if you're called to that, you may have one friend. You may have one. You may. You know what I'm saying? And it's because of the life that you live. This is who you are. This is who God has called you to be. Don't be afraid of it. Don't run away from it. Don't be ashamed of it. Embrace it. And also be very meticulous in who you choose to be around, because their stuff is just going to pop on you. People are going to smell and sense and pick up the anointing that you have because of the sacrifices that you make in God's presence. It's just what it is. It's contagious. It's not anything because of you. It's God, right? But because of what you carry, you have to protect it. That's something I feel like I've learned from even coming back to Atlanta from Florida. You've got to protect yourself. You got to protect your peace, and you have to protect your systems and I don't want to use the word rituals, but just your consistency in God's presence. You need to protect that, because the devil comes to steal, kill, and destroy, and the devil can come in the form of friendships. Okay, and so protect it with your life. That should be the thing you cherish the most. Your time with God, that level of intimacy. Let nobody come between you and God and what you and God have, that intimacy. The thing I was talking about earlier, this level of intimacy that I get to tap into because of my struggles, because of the different perspective that I have. Protect it. People may not agree with it. Protect it. Period. It's that simple. It's your relationship with God. It should be the thing that you value the most. And you can't let anybody come between that, because it's somebody coming between that. It's somebody coming between your peace. Right? And listen, we're going to protect our peace at all costs. All right? So that is it. That's all I got for y'all. Just be true to yourselves. Don't look to the left or the right. Keep your eye focused on God. God will direct your path. And the Bible says, like I said in the last podcast, trust in the Lord with all your heart and lean not on your own understanding. In all of your ways, acknowledge Him, and He'll direct your path. The prerequisite to God directing your path is you acknowledging Him in all of your ways. So if you want to hear God, right, direct everything that you do, You have to invite him in your daily routine. You have to invite him in the things that you do. All right, so that's it. This is the verse. Y'all know every time I finish a podcast, I'm gonna say this. May the Lord bless you and keep you. May the Lord make his face shine upon you and be gracious unto you. May the Lord look upon you with favor and give you peace. Love y'all.